Zhong Linlang has always believed that gods pity all living beings and demons harm people. The mirror of rebirth opened, and she traveled back 3 years to meet Fu Jingce, the young man with a half-demon body. In the world 3 years later, he was a tumultuous demon lord, but 3 years ago, he was actually the object of ridicule by the entire demon clan. She approached him for her mission and never showed any mercy towards him. It wasn't until that time at the temple on Autumn Sleep Mountain that she realized that behind powerful people, there was a fear of loneliness. But will God also sympathize with demons? Do you know? Zhong Linlang kept asking herself, but after thinking for a long time, she still didn't know the answer. She didn't understand what emotions were, as if the emotions of the goddess had given the world justice. For hundreds of years, she has never been bound by a romantic relationship. During those 3 years, she was taught what love is. Teach people that life and death are mutually assured. But her righteousness never succumbs to personal affection. Keywords of the novel. Selling Bones without pop-ups, downloading the complete collection of Selling Bones TXT, and reading the latest chapters of Selling Bones. Chapter 1. Chess Misplacement and Confrontation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Chess Misplacement and Confrontation. The weather in early spring still carries a slight chill, and this year's underworld is particularly busy. Perhaps last winter was too cold to withstand, and many people didn't wait until spring. There was a long queue in the front row of Naiha Bridge, with endless cries, laughter, and curses. Mengpe stood at the head of the bridge, mechanically repeating the action of scooping soup. Zhong Linlang set up a wooden table in the middle of the bridge, carefully examining the life and death books of each ghost to confirm whether they could enter reincarnation. The ox-headed horse next to him was holding a wand, with a serious expression, patrolling. The team slowly advanced, and Zhong Linlang was too busy to look up. Exhausted, she pinched her brow with her hand and whispered the name of the ghost in front of her. The ghost did not speak. Zhong Linlang looked up in frustration. The ghost in front of me was dressed in black armor, tied with a high ponytail, and had a handsome face with a hint of impatience. He also wore a sword around his waist, and the jade pendant on the sword made a pleasant sound. Zhong Linlang suddenly became energetic and almost didn't jump up. This face. She recognized this face, which was full of anger and turned into ash. The owner of the face, named Fu Jingce, was born with a magical bone. 3 years later, he became a demon who killed countless gods and harmed the people. Countless righteous sects tried to kill him, but in the end, all of them were destroyed by him, with a tragic death. But now, based on time, it seems that the magic energy in his body is not as strong. It is still possible to turn the tide. What's your name? Zhong Linlang looked up at him, wanting to use a cliché. She put down the judge's pen in her hand, and the other hand hidden in her sleeve quietly touched the soul-summoning blade. Fu Jingce. The young man in black seemed to have seen through her, but he didn't panic at all, his eyes were indifferent. Sure enough, it's on par. The young man suddenly drew his sword at an extremely fast speed, with a sharp blade pointing straight at Zhong Linlang. His eyebrows furrowed slightly, and his voice was as cold as winter snow. On the life and death book, find someone for me. Zhong Linlang calmly moved away and responded with a smile, who? Lu Wani. Fu Jingce relaxed his tense state when he said the name, and his expression unconsciously softened. Zhong Linlang frowned. As expected, anyone who travels through the world 3 years later will face a problem. The demon master Jingce is looking for someone named Lu Wani. The problem lies with Lu Wani. She didn't leave her name on the life and death book, and she's not a human either. She's a spiritual fetus formed by the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, without a soul. It's just that Fu Jingce doesn't know. Nevertheless, according to the immortal master who has traveled through time, even if Lu Wani is found, Fu Jingce will still be completely demonized 3 years later. The reason for this is not yet known, so the heavenly god asked Zhong Linlang to use a mirror of rebirth to travel back 3 years, figure out the reason for Fu Jingce's complete demonization, and then stop him, except for him, in order to seek eternal peace in the future. Zhong Linlang was originally a goddess in the sky, extremely noble, but for the sake of the Tao, she could only compromise herself and embark on an adventure in the underworld. Hello. Zhong Linlang was still in a daze when she saw a cold sword piercing straight at her, very sharp, which could be called ruthless. She awkwardly avoided and raised her sleeves. A few soul-breaking blades were thrown out, but before they could approach Fu Jingce's body, they were shaken back by his fierce aura. Zhong Linlang dodged sideways, somewhat surprised. The nearby bull-headed horse faced immediately rushed forward to help, and the long queue erupted with screams and intense discussions. Many ghosts fled everywhere, and the scene was very chaotic. The sword was in Fu Jingce's hand, as if it had come to life. The sword flowers flipped out were dazzling, and a faint red mist of blood permeated his body. Zhong Linlang saw clearly that a small blood lotus appeared between his eyebrows. Don't fight before you say a few words. She danced and gestured angrily at Fu Jingce, afraid he wouldn't understand people's words. Speak up if you have something to say. Fu Jingce had already gathered his strength and was ready to kill her completely. When he heard her speak like this, he didn't restrain himself much. After retracting the scabbard of the red water sword in his hand, he suddenly reached out and grabbed her neck. He pinched hard, leaving a few drops of blood on his face that made him look more like a demon. I told you, I'll find Lu Wani, he said. His gaze was indifferent, as if it were an emotionless marionette. Zhong Linlang's face turned red as she held it back, and she extended her leg to kick him. You spread your hands away. Fu Jingce calmly released his hand, his eyes disgusted. Zhong Linlang leaned over and coughed for a while, feeling that this person was simply insane and had a bad brain. The Yin soldiers and generals over there barely maintained order. Zhong Linlang took a deep breath, wiped the blood from the corners of her mouth, and then vigorously patted the table to line up the ghosts. Zhong Linlang sat down and patiently flipped through the life and death book. She flipped through it several times, but was surprised not to see the 3 words, Lu Wani. There were quite a few homophones. Sure enough, everything is developing according to its trajectory. Fu Jingce saw that she couldn't find it, so he took the booklet and started searching. Still not. What's going on? He became quite impatient and gathered his 2 fingers to tap on the table. This indicates that this person is not under the control of the underworld. Zhong Linlang tried to sit away from him as much as possible. It could be that she flew up to the sky, or maybe her soul had dispersed. This is really not a lie made up by Zhong Linlang. According to common sense, it is like this, but Lu Wani was born with a spirit and no soul to speak of, but she couldn't tell the truth to Fu Jingce, that pervert. Fu Jingce seemed to acquiesce to the latter, remained silent for a while, and spoke seriously, so what should we do? Zhong Linlang pretended to shake her head with regret, then pondered for a moment before saying, it seems like the only way is to use the soul-gathering cup. The soul-gathering cup is a divine object in the sky, which can gather scattered souls and spiritual energy. Fu Jingce frowned again and gave her a cold glance. How can I get it? Zhong Linlang was overjoyed in her heart, as this half-grown demon was quite easy to fall for. This is a divine artifact of the heavenly clan, but fortunately I have it. Zhong Linlang was very proud. When she crossed over, the heavenly god asked her to bring a bunch of artifacts, including the soul-gathering cup. It's simply an oversupply. Give it to me, Fu Jingce said expressionlessly, or I'll kill you. Zhong Linlang, in order to save unnecessary trouble, found a secluded place and pretended to be very reluctant to take out the soul-gathering lamp. A small lamp, condensed with a mist, shrouded in immortal aura. Fu Jingce reached out and snatched it, with a hint of longing in his dark eyes, as if he had seen hope. This is a divine object that the people of the demon clan cannot use. Zhong Linlang cheered up and continued to explore. Fu Jingce immediately turned his head to look at her, very alert. How do you know that I am a demon? Zhong Linlang said to herself, your name is very famous in all three realms. Can you use this thing? Fu Jingce asked her. Of course I will. Zhong Linlang was very confident. The judge of the underworld, why would he use it? Fu Jingce squinted his eyes, his face gloomy. You're lying. Before Zhong Linlang could speak, her neck was tightly choked again. Damn it, this person is quite good at using clichés. It took him a long time to be foolish and sweet, almost risking his life. Besides, she is not the judge of the underworld. She is a goddess, and the judge is just a temporary part-time job that cannot be done. But there was no way to say that directly. Zhong Linlang pursed her lips. The underworld is also under heaven's control, why did I lie? Fu Jingce glanced at her suspiciously and let go of his hand. If you say you do, prove it to me. Fu Jingce grabbed her collar. If you're lying, kill and feed the dog. Zhong Linlang inexplicably felt a cold wind pouring in from her collar. Fu Jingce got up and blew the wind, taking her away from the underworld and galloping along the way. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Entering the Palace. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Entering the palace. When she was a goddess, Zhong Linlang didn't really like to gallop in the wind, let alone now being carried by someone's collar. She felt even more uncomfortable and her head turned dizzy. It's hard to know how long it took before Fu Jingce finally stopped. Originally, there was still some distance from the ground, but Fu Jingce let go and let Zhong Linlang fall to the ground. Can you be gentle? Zhong Linlang fell all over in pain, hugging her legs and glaring at him fiercely. Fu Jingce frowned and looked at her. Stand up on your own. Zhong Linlang ignored him and said to her heart that the devil's way was indeed a devil's way. She didn't care about human relationships and was cold-blooded and meaningless. After standing up, she realized that there was a courtyard in front of her. To put it nicely, it was actually a very simple little thatched cottage. Entering the room, the decoration was very simple, with only a small square table, a bed, and a small stove. This place seems to have been abandoned for a short period of time, with a layer of ash falling everywhere, and some places even forming spider webs. Zhong Linlang looked around and guessed, is this Lu Wanni's residence? Fu Jingce nodded and said, yes. Didn't you say you know how to use the soul-gathering cup? Take it out and give it a try. He turned his head to look at her and didn't say a word. If you don't know how to use it, then die. Of course, Zhong Linlang knew the hidden message in his heart and quickly took out the soul-gathering cup, reciting the spell in a low voice. She held up the glowing soul-gathering lamp and swayed around for a while. Soon, some breath condensed inside the lamp, but it was very weak. You see, Zhong Linlang gestured, Lu Wanni has lived here before and has her aura, but it's almost impossible to find, so it's useless. The soul-gathering cup requires her spiritual energy. When the spiritual energy gathered, Lu Wanni came back to life. What should we do? Fu Jingce furrowed his brows, his eyes filled with more worry, and his thin lips pursed tightly. Zhong Linlang bit her finger and dripped a few drops of blood onto it. She thought about the deduction technique taught to her by her master, and then followed suit. The warm yellow light suddenly turned pale red, and the intricate patterns on the lamp body constantly changed, eventually becoming a few ancient characters. Palace, Demon Palace, Immortal River. Zhong Linlang was overjoyed at first glance, but she didn't expect the spiritual energy of this Lu Wanni to dissipate thoroughly. It can be found in the human, demon, and immortal realms, and it would take a lot of effort to find it. Fu Jingce also leaned over to take a look, and his eyes, which had always been calm, were also filled with ripples, with a hint of joy on his face. Zhong Linlang became more and more curious, is that how you want to find her? Poor and green, falling from the underworld, from heaven to earth, no matter what method I use, I will save her. Fu Jingce lowered his head slightly, his eyelashes long and dense, casting a small shadow below his eyes. Even if it's a soul, it's fine. The demon god who calls for wind and rain can also be so humble. Zhong Linlang felt a bit strange in her heart, and she immediately brainstormed a tragic scene in her mind. Let's go to the palace. Fu Jingce changed his worried expression and looked at Zhong Linlang, towering down. Don't think of playing any tricks. Zhong Linlang really wanted to howl loudly, and the donkeys in the production team didn't use such a command. But the next second, Fu Jingce picked up her collar and galloped away in the wind. I don't know how long it took, but Fu Jingce stopped at the entrance of the capital. The capital city in the mortal world is called Yunjing, with grand and bustling buildings. Zhong Linlang has been in the sky for a long time and is very interested in the world. She originally wanted to take a good stroll, but Fu Jingce did not give her this opportunity and went straight to the palace. The communication among the palace personnel was very complicated, and the two of them used an invisibility maneuver to avoid a lot of trouble. I said, standing like this is not a solution. Zhong Linlang's patience was almost worn out. The place where she stood was the lake in the imperial garden, and almost no one came except for the eunuchs and palace maids who were sweeping. Fu Jingce looked silently at the palace maid passing by in front of him, without saying a word. After standing for a while, suddenly a woman dressed in luxurious clothes walked over. Her appearance was very beautiful, but her skin was a bit too fair, showing a sickly pale complexion. Behind her followed two palace maids, who should be the empress from some palace. Zhong Linlang stared closely at her, feeling suddenly startled. The scent on this woman's body is a bit familiar, belonging to the same kind as the one in the thatched cottage. There is only one possibility. The spiritual energy of Lu Wani is attached to her body. But to obtain spiritual energy, one must wait for the body to die and detach it from its soul. Fu Jingce clearly noticed this, his eyes narrowed, and he was filled with a murderous aura. Hey, don't be impulsive. Zhong Linlang was afraid that he would act recklessly, so she quickly stopped him. This is the palace, and the sudden death of the concubine will cause trouble. Fu Jingce thought for a moment and felt that there was some truth. So, what should we do? Let's find someone to be possessed first. Zhong Linlang pondered for a moment and took a liking to a large palace maid beside the woman. I'll be possessed by her. You can find anyone you want. It has to be said that Fu Jingce is a very backbone person. He insists on not being possessed by palace maids or eunuchs, and insists on finding suitable people to be possessed. Zhong Linlang had no choice but to ask him to contact her again when he had time. She successfully attached herself to the palace maid without any abnormality. Chuanji. The woman in gorgeous palace attire turned her body and called out to her with a gentle smile. Zhong Linlang realized that she was shouting at herself. What instructions does Empress have? Zhong Linlang respectfully bent down, drawing gourds and gourds. The weather is going to change. The woman covered her mouth and couldn't help coughing a few times. Please help me go back to the palace. Zhong Linlang quickly welcomed her and helped her. The woman's hands were icy cold, and her body was as weak as a willow. Zhong Linlang could tell at a glance that she couldn't live long. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Disputes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Disputes. According to Chuanji's memory, Zhong Linlang learned that the palace they were in was Chang'e Palace, and the master they served was Lady Shu, the sickly-looking woman. Consort Shu is in poor health and needs to drink a large bowl of medicine every day. Zhong Linlang sat in the kitchen, holding a fan in one hand, fanning the small stove where medicine was being decocted. It's raining outside, and the cool air seeping in mixed with the misty medicinal scent, creating waves of white mist. Sister Chuanji. A crisp voice came, and Zhong Linlang looked up. Xiaoyao, dressed in a light blue cotton dress, was lifting the curtain and walking in. Her eyes were sparkling. Has the medicine for the lady been cooked? It's done. Zhong Linlang nodded and poured the medicine into a white porcelain bowl, then placed it on a tray and took it away. Xiaoyao followed Zhong Linlang and couldn't help but shake her head, saying, "Today is 15. Your Majesty will come tonight." There is an unwritten rule in the Changle Palace. Although Lady Shu is not favored by the holy pet, the emperor will come to see her on the 15th day of each month. Stepping into the dormitory, I saw Lady Shu leaning against the collapse of Lady Gui, staring blankly at the raindrops outside the window. The cool breeze enveloped her body's temperature, and she couldn't help but cough a few times. Xiaoyao quickly went over and closed the window. "Madam, I've taken some medicine." Zhong Linlang walked over with a medicine bowl in her hand, holding a few pieces of preserved fruit. Feifei frowned slightly, only glanced at the dark medicinal juice, then turned her head and said, "I don't want to drink it now. You can put it there." "Your Majesty is coming tonight." Feifei coughed several more times, her face turning even paler. She raised her face slightly, as if looking at herself in the mirror. "Dress me up." The peony immediately responded. She picked up the dressing box, which contained various colored cosmetics. With the disguise of rouge, Lady Shu's face turned much more rosy, and her whole body also added a touch of vitality. It's already late autumn now, and the sky outside is getting dark. Zhong Linlang lit a light inside and sent someone to prepare for dinner. "I hate these days," Lady Shu suddenly spoke up. "On the 15th day of each month, I dress up carefully so that His Majesty can come and see me. Sometimes, when I think about it, the women in the palace are really pitiful." After she finished speaking, she suddenly burst into laughter. Zhong Linlang could clearly see that there was a flash of tears in her eyes. "After all the dishes for dinner are ready, the emperor will come." He came with a cold aura, and the eunuch beside him put away the umbrella and handed it to the guard behind the emperor. Zhong Linlang helped Lady Shu up from the collapse of the noble consort. "Your Majesty," the Lady Shu shouted weakly, but did not bow. The emperor frowned and glanced at her, gesturing for her to sit down. In fact, the emperor was quite young, dressed in a bright yellow dragon robe, with a handsome face and a very dignified appearance. "Why don't you drink this medicine?" The emperor saw the medicine bowl on the table and turned to ask Lady Shu. Lady Shu tilted her head to look at him and smiled. "Your Majesty, would you like me to drink it?" "What are these words?" the emperor scolded in a low voice, waving his sleeve to let the eunuch who was serving bukai. Feifei thought for a moment, picked up the medicine bowl, and without hesitation, drank the cold medicinal juice in one gulp. Although it was very difficult, she didn't even frown. "Chuanji," ordered concubine Shu, "put away the bowl." Zhong Linlang said yes, picked up the tray and put away the empty bowl. As she picked it up, she touched the cold fingers of Lady Shu. "It's too strange, there's no warmth of life on her body." Zhong Linlang walked out and almost bumped into the guard at the door. The guard lowered his head slightly, his pitch-black eyes staring at her coldly. Zhong Linlang suddenly had a premonition in her heart. "Fu Jingce. It's me." Fu Jingce nodded and leaned against the door frame, asking her, "How is she doing?" Zhong Linlang knew that the she he was referring to was Lady Shu. "She is very weak and doesn't have many days left." "The emperor doesn't seem to dote on her very much," Fu Jingce snorted coldly, his tone filled with disdain. "I follow the emperor and see different concubines every night. The woman in the deep palace, who has lost her favor, cannot live for long. There is no moon tonight, and the lights in the room reflect, making Fu Jingce's handsome profile even colder." Zhong Linlang was afraid that he would take action to kill Lady Shu in advance, so she advised, "Don't take action now. If Lady Shu dies unjustly, she will definitely cause a lot of trouble. It's easy to solve this problem in the imperial palace, but after a person dies, they will be managed by the underworld. If they don't want to turn into a fierce ghost after death, it will be troublesome. Fu Jingce gave her a cold glance and didn't speak again. After Zhong Linlang finished delivering the empty bowl, she returned to the palace to be on standby. She stood at the door, although her gaze was blocked by the pearl curtain, she could clearly hear the conversation between Lady Shu and the Emperor. "I heard that EP1-10 is pregnant with a child, and I would like to congratulate your Majesty," said Feifei in a soft and gentle voice. The Emperor remained silent for a while without a response, and after a while, he said, "Why do you mention this so well? My concubine envies me." Concubine Shu did not shy away. "I will never have children again. Ji Shu." The Emperor suddenly called out her name, adding a hint of impatience in his tone. "You are really confused. I came to see you, and you said such foolish words." Zhong Linlang heard concubine Shu laugh and said, "Did I hit the pain point of your Majesty? I have lost my child, isn't it also due to your Majesty's gift?" The Emperor patted the table and stood up. "I see that you are seriously ill. Tomorrow, I will send the imperial physician to show you." The Emperor really got angry and didn't wait much longer. He brushed his sleeves and left. Watching the Emperor walk away, Xiaoyao walked in with a sigh and said, "Empress, why bother?" Zhong Linlang also walked over. Feifei propped her chin with both hands and watched her tidy up the dishes, shaking her head. "I'm just telling the truth," she said. "A few years ago, she used to be a pretty and lively little girl, always happy and not knowing what troubles were. Everyone dotes on her, she has a loving brother, a loving mother, and a crush. At that time, her beloved rode a horse to pick her up, smiled recklessly, and said to her, 'Ji Shu, marry me. When I become emperor, you are the queen.' She was bewitched and easily believed him. But he didn't make her the queen, only granted her a concubine. Little did he know that he was actually a pawn in his stable position. She thought she had met true love, but this love kept her in the abyss time and time again. Her heart was repeatedly trampled upon, and from the moment she was exterminated, she had already died on that rainy night as it is today. Although it was a hot and dry spring rain at that time, she felt cold. She knelt outside the palace gate for several hours, but he didn't look at her. She fell seriously ill. In order to punish her foolishness, heaven caused her child to die early, and her body became increasingly weak. He will no longer pity her. He has added cinnabar to the medicine he gave her, and if she drinks it, she will not have children with him anymore. Feifei closed her eyes, and the corners of her eyes gradually became moist. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Flower Falling. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Flower Falling. Since the Emperor came that day, Lady Shu's illness has been getting worse and she has been lying in bed for several days. Her life is passing by rapidly, like an uncontrollable fine sand. Zhong Linlang couldn't help but sigh in her heart. Consort Shu should not be able to survive tonight. Sister Chuanji. Xiaoyao looked at her and her eyes turned red. What's wrong with Madam? Zhong Linlang didn't dare to tell her the truth, just said, Madam is seriously ill. Remember to feed her medicine. The chrysanthemums in the imperial garden are blooming very well. I'll pick a few to show Madam. Xiaoyao nodded obediently. Zhong Linlang hurried towards the imperial garden. She sent someone to deliver a message to Fu Jingce, he should come. Zhong Linlang picked a few autumn chrysanthemums first, then squatted by the lake, patiently waiting. The water surface was sparkling, just enough to reflect the face of Chuanji. Zhong Linlang stared at the face for a while, feeling a bit unfamiliar. When she was a goddess, she lived in the goddess palace in the sky, where flowers bloomed and the seasons were like spring. She never knew what the suffering of the human world was like. Every day she wears a white goddess costume, with large lotus flowers embroidered with gold thread on the skirt, which looks very beautiful. She once led the fairies to dance, her big red clothes fluttering and beautiful beyond measure. Human beings respect and love her, and built a temple for her on Autumn Sleep Mountain. The mountaintop is covered in white snow all year round, with cold weather and freezing earth, but the incense for worship never stops. Now, for the sake of righteousness, she has to approach Fu Jingce and travel to the world, enduring countless hardships. Zhong Linlang sighed and fantasized about successfully killing the demon master Fu Jingce, while also showing a victorious smile at the water surface. Unexpectedly, another face was reflected on the water, gloomy and gloomy. Zhong Linlang was startled and turned around to find Fu Jingce standing behind her, unsure of when she had arrived. She never understood why Fu Jingce, a demon, was always wearing a stinky face, fearing that others would approach him. He was truly beautiful, with fair skin and handsome eyebrows and eyes. Zhong Linlang stood up discontentedly, her legs tingling and she almost couldn't stand steady. Fu Jingce leaned aside and frowned, clearly not intending to help her. Zhong Linlang didn't expect him to be kind enough to help, so she stood up on her own. Consort Shu's illness is getting worse and worse, she said. I won't live tonight. Fu Jingce lazily leaned against a tree, his eyes half narrowed, lifeless. Where's the soul-gathering cup? He seemed to suddenly remember something. Okay. Zhong Linlang looked at him alertly, afraid that he would notice his plan. Fu Jingce nodded, looking very satisfied. We'll take action once Consort Shu dies, he said. He caught a glimpse of the autumn chrysanthemum in her hand. She's almost dead, what's the use of picking this for her? Fu Jingce sneered. The sunlight fell from the cracks in the branches and gently onto the young man's face, illuminating his pitch-black eyes into a semi-transparent color. Such a perfect face, yet the words spoken are so chilling. Zhong Linlang covered the flower in her hand, frowned, looked at him with disdain, and ran away without saying a word. This demon will eventually be eliminated. When Zhong Linlang returned to the Changle Palace, Consort Shu was still unconscious, and Xiaoyao was sitting by her bed, covering her face and crying. Insert the picked autumn chrysanthemums into the jade bottle, and Zhong Linlang walked gently over. Feifei was already light in stature, and this serious illness tormented her even more emaciated. She lay weakly in bed, her face pale as paper, and her lips pale as if lifeless. She half opened her eyes, but started talking nonsense. We also had a child once. He's only 3 years old, and he calls me Auntie. The smile on Lady Shu's face grew slightly, but it quickly faded. Such a young child died of illness. I'm sorry, I'm his auntie, but I couldn't protect him. Your Majesty, our first child has died. Shu Fei's thin and weak body trembled slightly. Your Majesty. That's our child. Why are you not sad at all? She was like a flower beaten by rain, trembling violently in the wind. When the rain stopped, it also fell. Consort Shu couldn't help but spit out 2 mouthfuls of blood and fell asleep again. Xiaoyao trembled and wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth with a handkerchief, crying silently. In the evening, Lady Shu still hadn't woken up. Zhong Linlang fed her a bowl of medicine midway, but she didn't drink it and vomited it all. Feifei has no medicine, she even breathes very weakly. Zhong Linlang stood by the bed, looking at her. She couldn't figure it out. The Feifei, who had been smiling at her in the imperial garden a few days ago, was about to die now. Heaven has the virtue of good life, as well as the laws of birth, aging, illness, and death. Zhong Linlang wanted to save her, but she couldn't go against the heavens to save her. Rewriting the destiny of ordinary people is a great taboo. The lady in bed suddenly whispered, and Zhong Linlang leaned over to listen, only to find a few extremely weak, Your Majesty, sounds. Her heart suddenly pricked with something, and she quickly found the peony and asked, Where is Your Majesty? Where is Your Majesty? She doesn't understand emotions. It turns out that emotions can make a person so humble. I sent someone to invite you before, but Your Majesty cares about the palace of the concubine and may not come, said Xiaoyao with tears in her eyes. Zhong Linlang frowned and walked out quickly, thinking to herself that the emperor was really ruthless. She followed the memory of the original owner and found the Jinhua Palace of the concubine. Unlike the Chang'e Palace, the Jinhua Palace is very lively, with bright lights hanging high and palace people looking happy and hurried. Zhong Linlang initially planned to break in directly, but was soon stopped by someone. The palace maid who stopped her recognized her as from the Feifei Palace and insisted on not letting her in. Fu Jingce stood at the entrance of the main hall and was quite surprised to see her. "What are you doing here?" He walked over and drove away the palace maids who were blocking the way. "Consort Shu is seriously ill, I'll go find the emperor." Zhong Linlang thought to herself, "You go and report to the emperor." Fu Jingce appeared very reluctant and gave her a skeptical glance before finally going. In no time, the emperor came out, wearing a regular uniform. He walked straight towards Zhong Linlang, his tone urgent. "Is Lady Shu really seriously ill?" Someone did report him in the afternoon, but did not say he was seriously ill, only that Lady Shu wanted to see him. Zhong Linlang nodded earnestly, and the emperor immediately hurriedly led his people to the Chang'e Palace. She turned around and was about to follow when she suddenly heard a woman scolding from behind, "Stop." She turned around and saw a woman in splendid attire, her abdomen slightly bulging, indicating that she was a concubine. "What's wrong?" Zhong Linlang hurriedly rushed back and didn't have the heart to talk to her. Ibn first remained silent and walked up to her with her waist supported. She raised her hand and slapped her hard. This slap was too sudden, and Zhong Linlang only felt a burning pain on her face. "Consort Shu is not in good health and neglects to discipline you. Today, this palace will teach you a good lesson for her." Yi's voice was sharp and aggressive. "Even though you know your majesty is with me, why are you joining in the fun? What if Consort Shu dies? If you cannot be favored by your majesty, calling your majesty away will be of no use." Zhong Linlang was infuriated and laughed. This concubine is indeed a foolish person, jealous and narrow-minded. Although she is now possessed by a palace maid, she has at least served as a goddess and has never suffered such injustice, so there is no need to suffer such injustice. Zhong Linlang secretly used a magic technique and changed a face to scare her. The ghostly face looked very eerie, and EP1, who had just been arrogant, couldn't even speak when she saw it. She hesitated and pointed at Zhong Linlang, as if she had contracted fetal gas. Zhong Linlang sneered and ignored her, rushing to the Chang'e Palace. Even if the emperor went, Lady Shu still did not wake up. The emperor sat stubbornly by the edge of the bed, holding her hand and not speaking, just waiting quietly. He suddenly remembered a long time ago, when his consort was still a little girl, she always liked to tease him, loved to play, loved to laugh, loved to make noise, like a lively cat. When did she stop laughing? Probably after she lost her child. At that time, he did many wrong things for power. He destroyed her entire clan, gave her cinnabar, and hurt her heart time and time again. These things even he regretted. Now she is seriously ill and wants to leave him. "Your Majesty." At some point, Lady Shu finally half opened her eyes and forced out a pale smile. "I'm going to die." The emperor clenched her hand and shook his head, saying, "Ji Shu, don't say anything foolish. That night on the 15th, he shouldn't have treated her like that. If it's possible to start over, he wants to have a good meal with her." "Your Majesty," Feifei said a few more words forcefully, "you always call me Feifei. I hate this title, especially the character Shu. Xian Shu, it's for my pain, I don't want it." The emperor pressed her hand against his face. It turned out that her hand was so bony, and now he only felt regretful. "Ji Shu, I apologize to you," he said. Feifei closed her eyes, it had just returned to light. The emperor approached in fear, his eyes filled with regret and tears. He is the true dragon emperor, a human emperor who covers the sky with one hand, but he cannot save her. I used to hold a high position, but I couldn't protect her. Ashi, Feifei suddenly shouted his name forcefully, as if using all her strength. I don't want to hate you anymore, I'm very happy. She was happy to leave the place where she was imprisoned for her whole life. She is very happy to meet her brother and mother now. She was very happy that from then on, there was no Feifei, only Jishu. Once upon a time, she happily called him every day, Ashi, Ashi. Since the child was gone, she was also unhappy. She restrained her foolishness and only called him His Majesty. The Emperor felt a wave of palpitations, as if someone had grabbed his heart. He panicked and grabbed her hand, but her hand gradually slipped down. He never wanted to hold her hand so much. Consort Shu still went. The little girl who was once scolded by herself for not understanding the rules really left forever. 7 years of court life have worn away her innocence and love for him. The Emperor still hasn't moved. Something suddenly flowed down my cheeks. Zhong Linlang reached out to touch, only to find a cold and damp patch. I actually cried. Perhaps the owner of this body, Chuanji, felt the departure of Feifei. Fu Jingce, as the Emperor's personal guard, stood aside, clearly not understanding these complex emotions. Even when he saw Zhong Linlang crying, he just looked at her with confusion, as if she had done something very confusing. Why cry? Fu Jingce really didn't understand. He only felt impatient as such a touching scene unfolded. He has a bad temper, so Zhong Linlang said that when he was ruthless, he was still a bit angry and asked her what affection is. Zhong Linlang hesitated and finally concluded that love is poison, and having love is being poisoned. Fu Jingce was extremely disdainful. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Feifei. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Feifei. After the death of Consort Shu, the spiritual energy attached to her soul was successfully stripped off. According to the plan, the next place should go to the Demon Palace. But the Demon Palace belongs to the territory of the Demon Realm, where the Demon Emperor resides. Not to mention ordinary people, only gods and demons have arrived. Without the Demon Jade as a passage permit, no one can enter. Moreover, Demon Jade is a very rare object, not found in the sky or underground, only high-level demons have it. Zhong Linlang couldn't come up with a solution at the moment, so she had to rent a room in a human inn first. Fu Jingce insisted on distinguishing between men and women and insisted on living in a room next to her. Having been busy working in the palace of the human world for so long, at night, Zhong Linlang was exhausted and fell asleep, but Fu Jingce couldn't sleep at all. He tossed and turned in bed, feeling more and more that something was wrong. Too smooth, everything is too smooth. I went to the underworld to find someone on my own. Although I couldn't find anyone, I successfully obtained the Soul Gathering Cup, which could save Lu Wani. Besides, I also had an auxiliary judge from the underworld. That Zhong Linlang must be wrong. Be attentive to nothing, neither deceit nor theft. Fu Jingce was lying in bed, the night was dark, and he had been sleeping when he heard a few muffled noises. The muffled sound seemed to come from the neighboring room, accompanied by a faint sound of footsteps, which was particularly piercing in the quiet night. The boy frowned and gently pushed the door open before walking out. Zhong Linlang's door was ajar, and a faint fragrance drifted in. Fu Jingce covered his mouth and nose and looked over silently, seeing a man in white standing in front of her bed, as if searching for something. Zhong Linlang, who was sleeping in bed, seemed to have been mesmerized by the fragrance and was completely unaware of it. Fu Jingce sensed the danger and squinted his eyes. He was about to draw his sword and rush in when he suddenly saw Zhong Linlang jumping up on the bed. Hey! Dare to steal from me! The girl's clear voice was tinged with a hint of excitement as she stretched out her leg and kicked the man in white fiercely. The man in white was kicked and rolled to the ground, his movements mechanical. Zhong Linlang quickly stood up and, taking advantage of the moonlight shining through, was surprised to find that this person had no face. It is a puppet without a soul, manipulated by people. The next second, a sword with a cold light flashed across the neck of the white-clothed puppet. Before Zhong Linlang could react, the puppet was orchestrated by Fu Jing. The opening seemed to have come to life and quickly spread out, with red light constantly gushing out from inside. However, after a while, the puppet dissipated without leaving any trace. Fu Jingce sneered and sheathed his sword. If someone came to steal something, it wouldn't be the only time. Zhong Linlang paced the room. Although there was only one puppet running around today, it definitely wouldn't be the only time. The soul-gathering cup was originally a divine artifact that absorbed a portion of spiritual energy, and the number of people who coveted it did not decrease. The most important thing now is to figure out who the person behind the puppet was manipulating. However, Fu Jingce took a quiet look at her, and was not as worried as he thought. "What are you afraid of when the soldiers come to stop her?" Zhong Linlang looked at his gloomy expression and felt that this person was really strange and unpredictable, so she decided not to speak much. Fu Jingce slowly approached her step by step, his face expressionless but with a hint of strangeness. Zhong Linlang retreated straight until there was a wall behind her, unable to retreat any further. Although it was a drowsy night, the young man's eyes were surprisingly bright. He lowered his head, the distance between the two was so close that they could hear each other's breathing. Fu Jingce suddenly reached out his hand and touched the girl's cheek. The skin under his palm, as white as snow, made him pause slightly. He squinted his eyes, but his words made his heart skip a beat. "I want to know who you are," he said. Zhong Linlang couldn't help but turn her face away from his hand and chuckle a few times. "I'm just a judge in the underworld." "Your memory is really bad." The words were spoken pale, and Fu Jingce looked at her with a chilling expression in his eyes. "Oh, but the judge of the underworld, where did he get such a good artifact?" He refers to the soul-gathering cup. Indeed, a judge from the underworld should not have such a divine artifact. Zhong Linlang only hated himself for being too anxious and showing his cards in advance. "There are so many good things in the underworld, how can I let you know? Besides, you're holding the soul-gathering cup now and trying to save Lu Huani. I can't ignore it either." Although this reason is absurd, Fu Jingce is unable to refute her now. He could only distance himself from her and said coldly, "I believe you." When he said this, his lips curved, but there was no smile in his eyes. Zhong Linlang's scalp tingled as she heard this sentence, "I believe you." She thought it was even more terrifying than, "I killed you." "Why do you want to save Lu Huani so much?" Zhong Linlang quickly changed the topic to distract him. "Did she save your life?" Originally, she just casually said it, but to her surprise, Fu Jingce fell silent for a moment and nodded in response. "She did indeed save my life." Zhong Linlang noticed that when he mentioned Lu Huani, Fu Jingce's tone would ease and his expression would become much gentler. 5 years ago, when he was still weak in demonic energy, he was injured by a Taoist using a brush dust, which was very serious and almost fatal. In a panic, he fled into a forest and hid in the grass half a person high, hiding his demonic aura. He was very cautious, but still fainted due to excessive blood loss. When he woke up again, he was in that small thatched cottage. Although his vision was blurry, Fu Jingce still saw the weak back and that very gentle face. The person who saved him was Lu Huani. Seeing him awake, she walked over with a medicine bowl and sat by the edge of the bed, gently asking him if it hurt. Fu Jingce just lowered his head and didn't dare to look at her. From birth to now, he has been a demon. Although he has not yet become a true demon, many people want to kill him, including those immortal Taoist priests and his relatives. Few people speak to him in such a gentle tone. Because of Lu Huani, Fu Jingce felt the feeling of melting his heart for the first time. "It's late at night, you go to bed," Fu Jingce said solemnly. "There will be a ghost market tomorrow night, and it's a good time to go and see it." After he finished telling that short story, Zhong Linlang suddenly felt an indescribable feeling in her heart. It's like a sense of pity, and it's like a sense of regret. But she is a goddess, and since ancient times, gods and demons have been inseparable. She cannot sympathize with Fu Jingce, even if he is a weak young man. The ghost market in the human world may sound like selling magical objects, but to be honest, it is not so authentic, and the products sold are also mixed with many counterfeit goods. Zhong Linlang has visited before, so this time she didn't have much novelty and just casually strolled around. I said, even if you come to this ghost market, you can't buy anything. She patted Fu Jingce's shoulder as she walked. Fu Jingce avoided her hand and replied seriously, it's not necessary to buy something, maybe we'll make a profit in the end. This statement has his own style of action. Nonsensical, enough to talk about. Zhong Linlang pursed her lips, didn't speak anymore, and looked around. Fu Jingce continued to walk forward, as people kept shouting in the ghost market. He looked contemptuously, and when he lowered his head, he found that he had extra hands on his ankles. Those hands were as white as jade, only stained with some dust. The owner of Meisho was tightly holding onto his thigh, looking up at him. She is a woman who dresses very cool, has a good figure, and looks beautiful enough. There is an iron chain around the neck, and a palm-sized face with a pair of pitiful big eyes, which makes people feel very distressed. Zhong Linlang said to herself, I've seen you for a long time. Fu Jingce was very impatient and was about to kick her hard, but the next second he gave her a serious look and suddenly changed his attitude. He bent down to help the woman. Next to the woman stood a man with a mustache, holding a whip in his hand, looking very like a profiteer. Seeing Fu Jingce lift the woman, he immediately exclaimed in a strange voice, Yo, young master, don't touch her blindly. We still have to sell this girl. Fu Jingce frowned and gave him a cold glance. He took out an ingot of gold from his sleeve pocket and threw it to him. Is it enough? The unscrupulous merchant hurriedly took it over and exclaimed in ecstasy, That's enough, thank you, young master. He immediately took out the key and untied the chain around the woman's neck. The woman gained support and immediately attached a small bird to Fu Jingce in a submissive manner. Zhong Linlang was so surprised that her eyes almost fell off. Is this what you said you earned? Fu Jingce glanced at her and nodded seriously, yes. What a beautiful girl. The very beautiful girl, upon hearing his undisguised praise, shyly climbed onto Fu Jingce's arm and said, Young master, I really hate you. My name is Feifei. Fu Jingce lazily raised his hand and scraped her nose, but he really called out Feifei. Then he walked back with Feifei as if he had forgotten about someone else. Zhong Linlang has not yet regained her senses. Unexpectedly, this ordinary and extremely bad-tempered demon with a severe obsession for cleanliness is also a promiscuous young master who sees beautiful women unable to walk. But she's such a beautiful goddess in front of him, why hasn't she even given her a good face? Zhong Linlang has never been anxious about her appearance, but now she is a bit self-doubting. No, a demon, what do you know about aesthetics? Besides, the gods and demons are not at odds. How could this demon appreciate the divine posture of a goddess? Zhong Linlang frowned and comforted herself, but still followed suit. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Scam. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Scam. Since buying Feifei, Fu Jingce seems to have forgotten his task and spends his days playing and having fun with her, which is very comfortable. The emperor is not in a hurry, the eunuch is in a hurry, and Zhong Linlang is so anxious that she jumps in the room. Normally, this demon is also a smart person who understands what to do and what not to do, but what's the situation with him eating, drinking, and having fun every day lately? And that Feifei, although she is a human, her origin is unknown and her path is strange. People with some brains will be on guard, but looking at Fu Jingce like that, she really wants to hand herself over. Zhong Linlang sat at the table with deep hatred and drank a cup of tea. She never expected that the demon she wanted to eliminate would also be a lecherous person. She sighed and decided to go out on her own to search for intelligence. Unexpectedly, just as she got up, Feifei knocked on her door. Zhong Linlang was a bit surprised, but still let her in. The bean paste cake made in this inn tastes good. I came to give you 2 pieces. Feifei smiled and came in with a dish of cake. You want to go out, girl? Zhong Linlang nodded and said, staying at the inn is boring. I'm going to the tea house to hear about books. By the way, where is Fu Jingce? She asked again. Feifei smiled and said, Master Fu drank some wine and is now asleep. I really came here to enjoy happiness. Feifei looked very happy and enthusiastically gave her directions. In terms of storytelling, it's better to talk at Mengzi Tower. The girl should leave the inn and turn right and walk straight. Zhong Linlang smiled at her and asked her to put the things on the table. She thanked her and then left. After leaving the inn, she took a few steps to the right and looked up to see Feifei standing by the corridor window, staring at her. Noticing Zhong Linlang's gaze, Feifei smiled awkwardly at her and then left the window. There must be a ghost. Zhong Linlang felt something was wrong and pretended to walk forward for a while. After confirming that no one was there, she hid and quickly ran back to the inn. Walking to the door of my room, I found that it was tightly closed. Zhong Linlang reached out her finger and pierced a layer of window paper, then looked inside through the small hole. The person inside is indeed Feifei. She is bending over and searching for something. After a while, she took out a lamp from the pillow on the bed, a lamp that was filled with fairy energy. She took the soul-gathering lamp and silently recited something. In no time, the spiritual energy from the lamp dissipated and lingered around her, then drifted into her body. Zhong Linlang couldn't help but say that Feifei had another intention. After pulling her away, she came to steal the artifact. However, Zhong Linlang glanced at the shrunken soul-gathering cup in her sleeve pocket and thought to herself, this artifact is right beside her. What is it in Feifei's hand? Didn't you say you went to listen to the book? Come back so soon. A deep male voice suddenly rang in my ear. Zhong Linlang was almost scared and jumped up. She turned around and found that Fu Jingce was standing next to her with ill intentions. Zhong Linlang supported her forehead and gestured for him to look over. Look, you've brought back a disaster. Fu Jingce glanced lightly at her and shook his head. What kind of calamity? It's clear that it's luring snakes out of their holes. Zhong Linlang frowned and sniffed carefully, only to find that Fu Jingce had no alcohol smell on him. If I don't pretend to be drunk, how can I take her away? Fu Jingce withdrew his gaze and lightly patted Zhong Linlang's shoulder, gesturing for her to follow him. Let's go, there will be a good show to watch soon. His tone was relaxed, as if he was really interested in the upcoming scene. Although Zhong Linlang didn't understand his meaning, he still followed suit. Fu Jingce took her to his room and patiently sat on a chair drinking tea. He had a clear smile in his eyes as he held the tea cup, with a hint of bloodthirsty excitement. After a cup of tea, Feifei appeared in Fu Jingce's room on time. When she saw Zhong Linlang, she was clearly stunned for a moment. Why is Miss Zhong here too? She finished her storytelling so quickly. Feifei smiled lovingly, feeling somewhat innocent. Zhong Linlang nodded with a fake smile and said, there's nothing fun about storytelling. I'll come back and chat with you. Feifei's mouth twitched and a hint of impatience flashed in her eyes. Feifei. Fu Jingce changed his position and leaned on Changtu, his voice lingering as he called out her name. Pour a cup of tea for Miss Zhong. Zhong Linlang felt like she had goosebumps. Feifei regained her composure and obediently walked to the table to pour tea. However, before she even picked up the tea cup, she felt a piercing pain and tried to press it down, but to no avail. The pain became more and more obvious, and she couldn't hold on. Her whole body collapsed, and the teapot in her hand shattered into several pieces on the ground. Zhong Linlang didn't have time to dodge, and the tea in the pot splashed all over her. "What's wrong?" Fu Jingce reached out to help her, but when Feifei wanted to catch his hand, he withdrew it and let her fall to the ground. "Now you know it hurts." Feifei looked up at Fu Jingce inexplicably. She was in pain and had no strength to speak anymore. She could only hold back a few words and said, "What does that mean?" "Tisk." Fu Jingce gave her a sympathetic look and leaned back comfortably. "How does the smell of poisonous gas taste?" Feifei suddenly looked up at him and said, "Poison gas." "You're still too young," Fu Jingce shook his head regretfully. "Do you really think you found the soul-gathering cup?" The soul-gathering cup that Feifei received was fake. He had already placed a fake one next to her pillow while Zhong Linlang was not paying attention, and even dripped a few drops of his own blood into it. A few drops of demonic blood are enough to kill the heart. Feifei knew she had been tricked upon seeing this, but she didn't hide it. She lifted her hand and used her magic to attack Fu Jingce. Fu Jingce easily dodged, while Feifei lay on the ground, bleeding from the corners of her mouth, unable to make a second attack. "Tell me, who's behind you?" Fu Jingce stood up leisurely and reached out to pinch her chin. "I'll give you the antidote when I say it." Feifei looked at him with resentment and remained silent. Fu Jingce became unhappy and let go of his hand. He gave her a disdainful look and said, "I don't appreciate it." Although Zhong Linlang had long been accustomed to his coldness, it was the first time she had seen him so directly. Although Feifei had a different plan, pretending to be a human, after all, it was he who bought it, and he could be so ruthless. Perhaps, when he reached out to help her in the ghost market, he noticed something was wrong with her. Fu Jingce suddenly reached out his hand in front of her. Zhong Linlang was stunned and understood his meaning. He took out a handkerchief from his sleeve pocket and handed it over. The young man wiped his hands with a handkerchief, his dark eyes calm as he lowered his head slightly to look at Feifei. Feifei felt so much pain that she couldn't resist. Seeing his eyes, she felt a chill from the bottom of her heart. "I, the owner of Song Yifang, wants to gather a soul cup and offer it to the demon emperor." Feifei covered her heart and said, I am from Song Yifang. In a few days. The demon emperor, his birthday." She spoke intermittently and without any logic, and after finishing these words, she reached out to Fu Jingce for an antidote. Fu Jingce bent his lips and squatted down to watch her shake his head. "Bones aren't that hard either." "By the way, I don't have an antidote," he said. Feifei looked at him incredulously, and the next second she reached out like a madman to grab him, but before struggling a few times, she stopped moving. "Poisoned to death." Zhong Linlang was stunned. She thought Fu Jingce would keep Feifei, but she managed to kill them all. This demon path is truly heartless. "A snake demon dressed in human skin, really thought I couldn't see it," Fu Jingce said in a contemptuous tone, as if it had only crushed an ant. The handkerchief in his hand fell off and happened to cover Feifei's face, which was still in a daze. From Feifei, Zhong Linlang always felt like she could see her future. If she didn't act in time, she would be tortured to death by this demon. She had a strange appearance in the ghost market, and approaching me was also an ulterior motive. Fu Jingce paced. "I think the person who controlled the puppet before coming here should have a connection with what she said about Song Yifang. We need to investigate this Song Yifang." Zhong Linlang regained consciousness and nodded, "But she's dead, what should we do?" Fu Jingce glanced at her and said, "What if she's dead? Others can manipulate puppets to steal artifacts, and we can also manipulate her." Zhong Linlang is not sure why. The blood of the demon clan can kill the heart or bewitch. Fu Jingce stood with his hand down, half of his face hidden in the shadow, unable to see his expression clearly. Zhong Linlang couldn't help but frown as she listened. She nodded, feeling that it was necessary for her to travel back and meet the gods. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Ning Ye. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 7. Ning Ye. That night, Zhong Linlang specially locked the door and confirmed that Fu Jingce had fallen asleep before taking out the mirror of rebirth. Her blurry face was reflected in the mirror of rebirth, and Zhong Linlang whispered a spell. The divine seal on her forehead flashed faintly. However, after a while, a huge light flickered in the mirror, and a channel slowly emerged. Zhong Linlang walked in step, and after a moment, the mirror of rebirth returned to normal, as if nothing had happened. She traveled back 3 years later. The mirror of rebirth teleported her directly to the heavenly palace. At this moment, the sky had just darkened and the heavenly palace had lit many lights, which looked very bright. Zhong Linlang did not return to his goddess's palace. When the immortal attendant saw her, he respectfully invited her to the palace of the heavenly god. The name of the heavenly god is Ning Ye, and he lives in the palace of eternal life, not far from the palace of the goddess. Since Zhong Linlang rose to become a goddess, she has become familiar with Ning Ye. Although he has a high status, he has no heirs and is easy to get along with. The immortal attendant led her all the way to the Changxing Hall, and Ning Ye was leaning against the collapse to read a book, without tying her hair, with green threads hanging down like a waterfall. Seeing someone coming, he just lifted his eyes lightly. "I." Zhong Linlang opened her mouth first, and she gave a glance to the immortal attendant, who immediately retreated. Upon hearing the familiar voice, Ning Ye regained his senses and straightened up somewhat incredulously. He had a jade crown on his face, painted eyebrows and eyes, and an extraordinary temperament. There was a cinnabar mole on his forehead, and under the light, he looked like an ancient deity, pure and graceful. The heavenly god remained the same, unchanged, yet able to bring her such a warm sense of familiarity. Ning Ye walked over quickly. The girl in front of her was wearing a deep blue smoky cotton skirt, with a cute smile and a crescent eyebrow. She crossed time and space, with a heavy longing, calling him I. Zhong Linlang smiled and looked at him, but suddenly fell into an embrace. A faint breath was within reach, and Ning Ye covered the soft hair of the girl with one hand, whispering softly. He was gently calling out her name. Zhong Linlang's face turned red, and she could even smell the faint cold fragrance on his body. I'm me, I'm here for business," she spoke nervously, afraid of disturbing Ning Ye. Ning Ye seemed to have not heard her, and after a while, he let go of her and looked at her seriously. "Is there anything hurt, isn't there?" Zhong Linlang quickly shook her head and said, "No, I'm doing very well." "What were you going to say to me just now?" He came over and took her hand, his eyes soft. Zhong Linlang honestly recounted everything that had happened these days. "So, you haven't entered the demon palace yet?" Ning Ye couldn't help but pace back and forth. "This is not a problem. You can indeed use Feifei to deal with Song Yifang and manipulate puppets. Although it is not shameful, it is indeed a way. Previously, so many immortal sovereigns were sent back through time travel. Although the process was different, the outcome was the same. No one could stop Fu Jingce from being completely demonized. No matter how many times he was sent back, he would still become a curse for thousands of years. The problem is, it's on Lu Wanni's body. However, the specific reason is still unknown. After receiving the spiritual energy of Lu Wanni, you fulfilled Fu Jingce's wish. If he is still stubborn, you should take action to kill him in advance. Ning Ye carefully instructed, absolutely cannot let him cause harm to all beings. If there is really no way to prevent Fu Jingce from being completely demonized, let him fly into ashes. Zhong Linlang nodded. "You take this." Ning Ye took out a brocade bag from his sleeve, embroidered with intricate patterns. "Don't open it unless there's an accident," he said. "Remember, it's the worst way." Zhong Linlang solemnly took it over. Song Yifang is the largest organization in the demon world, with a focus on protecting the safety of the demon emperor. This time, on the birthday of the Demon Emperor, you can seize the opportunity to enter the Demon Palace. Ning Ye held her hand tightly. Zhong Linlang said, well, I already know. I need to go back quickly. Although Ning Ye was reluctant to part, he had to nod and said, you go here and cherish it all the way. Zhong Linlang said nothing more, took out the mirror of rebirth, and prepared to put it back on. At this moment, Ning Ye suddenly called out to her. In the brightly lit hall of eternal life, he stood tall with jade and said, Linlang, if you're tired, come back. As long as you're safe, nothing else matters. Sending all the immortals back through time is already the last resort, and this time asking her to risk herself is even more of a last resort. He is a divine being, supreme, but he cannot replace her. Zhong Linlang smiled at him and shook her head firmly. If the evil path is not eliminated, it will never return. After taking her back with the mirror of rebirth, it was almost dawn. Zhong Linlang lay in bed for a while, then Fu Jingce knocked on her door and said, did you get up? Here we go. Zhong Linlang quickly got up and went to open the door, pretending to be drowsy. Why was your room so noisy last night? Fu Jingce frowned and glanced inside. Zhong Linlang rubbed her eyes and quickly fabricated, this bed is too small. I rolled off even when I fell asleep. Fu Jingce gave her a skeptical glance. By the way, Feifei, how are you handling it? Zhong Linlang quickly changed the topic. Fu Jingce gestured for her to look outside. Zhong Linlang followed his gaze and saw Feifei, who had already passed away, standing outside perfectly, her eyebrows and eyes still bright, and a lifelike smile hanging on her lips. It's just a bit hollow in my eyes, but it's hard to notice without looking closely. It has to be said that although the demon clan has many forbidden spells, they are really useful. Zhong Linlang gave him a thumbs up and said, I also found out that Song Yifang is an organization in the demon world that is responsible for protecting the demon emperor. Fu Jingce pondered seriously for a while, then glanced at Feifei and smiled contentedly, isn't this just an opportunity? Her memory shows that she will have a meeting with the people of Song Yifang tonight. He rarely smiles, and for the first time, Zhong Linlang saw him laughing recklessly, which shook her mind. Tonight. She lowered her eyes and thought for a moment, it was a good opportunity. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Meeting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Meeting. The night falls low, and the moonlight is like water. Above the upturned eaves stood a person. That person, dressed in black, easily hides into the pitch-black night, like a quiet crow. A woman walked silently behind her, with a slender figure, wearing a pink embroidered pleated skirt. The hem of the skirt swayed in the wind, and despite the cold weather, she didn't seem to have any warmth. The man in black turned around and looked at her. The woman presented a lamp and respectfully lowered her head. This is the main soul-gathering lamp in the neighborhood. The man reached out to take it, carefully looked around, but did not speak. The next second, the lamp was knocked over by him and shattered into several pieces. The cold wind at night swept over and extinguished a spark burning inside the wick. The man reached out and tightly squeezed the woman's chin, so strong that he could even hear the creaking sound of bones, and his whole body became even colder due to anger. Using fake ones to fool me. Zhong Linlang, who was hiding in the dark, observed everything and knew it was going to be bad. She couldn't help but reach out and poke Fu Jingce next to her. How could he find out so quickly that the light was fake? I've put a lot of effort into it. Fu Jingce nodded and said, I just want him to discover. As soon as I finished speaking, I saw a black shadow falling rapidly from the eaves. It was Feifei who was manipulated. She was twisted and thrown down, falling to the ground, with large patches of blood oozing out, like a blood lotus blooming in the dark night. Following closely behind was the man in black, who was as light as a swallow and easily landed on the ground in front of Fu Jingce. Manipulating a puppet, little demon god, this move is not very good. The man sneered, with an indescribable contempt in his tone. "Oh, there's also an extra assistant." He glanced at Zhong Linlang standing next to him and joked. To be honest, Zhong Linlang doesn't like his frivolous attitude, and his gaze. Cold yet glued to others. Fu Jingce reached out and pushed Zhong Linlang behind him, responding, "That's better than manipulating a puppet to steal. It's despicable and shameless." Perhaps the last sentence angered the man. He is the protector of Song Yifang. Except for the sect leader, everyone must respect him respectfully. No one has ever spoken to him like this to this day. In a few days, it will be the birthday of the Demon Emperor. If it weren't for the master wanting the soul-gathering cup as a gift, he wouldn't have had to come in person. He thought the scent Feifei could succeed, but it was exposed so quickly. "I don't mind. I just don't know. What would the demon god feel if he found out that his brother is not doing his job and is acting like a villain here? Will he kill everyone?" The man chuckled, obviously knowing how to expose someone else's pain. Fu Jingce is the little demon god, and the demon god is his brother, Jin Hong. The relationship between the two brothers is not good. They are of the same father and different mothers. As a legitimate son with pure bloodline, Jin Hong cannot tolerate Fu Jingce. To be precise, it is difficult for anyone in the entire demon clan to tolerate Fu Jingce. After all, the half-demon body is difficult to inherit the overall rule. This sentence accurately touched Fu Jingce's pain point, and his face gradually became unsightly. With his hand resting on the scabbard, the Qishui sword seemed to feel a dangerous aura, constantly stirring, causing the jade pendant at the end of the sword to make a crisp sound. The man in black moved faster than him, and his right hand condensed its demonic power, attacking Fu Jingce step by step with a gust of wind. Fu Jingce also drew his sword and gathered his strength to face him. The Qishui sword made constant friction sounds due to the collision of two powerful forces. It seemed to have vitality and became increasingly excited, and the sword flowers flipped out were dazzling. The demonic power of the man in black should not be underestimated. Fu Jingce blocked it with his sword and was forced to retreat in succession. At this moment, Zhong Linlang had a clear understanding of the enemy and us. She flicked out several soul-stirring blades from her sleeves, chanted a few incantations, and charged towards the man in black. If it weren't for fear that Fu Jingce would know her identity as a goddess, Zhong Linlang would have long worshipped the Chaoyao sword. The Chaoyao sword is a divine sword that took hundreds of years to forge using the nine heavens' mysterious fire. But she couldn't exert her divine power at the moment, so she had to restrain herself and join the fight. The man in black couldn't help but dodge and laughed loudly, "Just a judge from the underworld, what can I do?" But before his smile could last for a while, Fu Jingce's sword scratched his face. The man in black suddenly felt pain, and the sword energy on the red water sword, with blood shining, hid in his wound and kept tearing. The opening was getting wider and wider, and the man in black suppressed his pain and roared a few times, revealing his true form. It's actually a cat demon. A cat demon with black fur, sharp claws and teeth, and sparkling green eyes in the darkness. After regaining his original form, his movements were noticeably much faster. The cat demon gathered all its strength and jumped towards Fu Jingce. On the contrary, under the cool moonlight, Fu Jingce's eyes appeared so calm, like a deep lake. But Zhong Linlang knew that it was not true peace. Suddenly, a strong tearing pain came, and Zhong Linlang lowered her head to see several scratches on her wrist, which were so deep that blood was visible. The cat demon's cultivation was indeed remarkable. On the surface, it was aimed at Fu Jingce, but in reality, its target was her. It was so fast that it could even move its hand when she wasn't paying attention. The cat demon's claws were poisoned. Zhong Linlang suppressed the pain and needed a trick to suppress the poisonous gas on her wrist. Seeing the cat demon attacking her again, she quickly recited a curse and erected a thick barrier to block it. Unexpectedly, from the perspective of the war situation, she was at a disadvantage. Fu Jingce never made a move, and the cat demon smiled sharply and rushed towards him very quickly. The cat demon's move is not too fierce, it seems to be trying to exhaust their physical strength. Zhong Linlang was worried that he would really die in the hands of this cat demon. He freed up space and drew a safety talisman with his right hand. The calligraphy and painting on the talisman changed for a while, forming a small barrier that surrounded Fu Jingce. The boundary was illuminated, reflecting Fu Jingce's indifferent face. A blood lotus slowly appeared on his forehead, and his dark eyes were tinged with a faint glow of blood. The red water sword under his command sensed the owner's anger and began to stir restlessly. Why hurt people? Fu Jingce paused every word, his face expressionless, and the blood on his face made him more like a demon in hell. This question was really strange, and Zhong Linlang even had a misconception that he was indignant because of his injury. But soon she told herself that it was impossible. A cold-blooded and ruthless demon could not have fought a fierce battle with a monster for her. It must have been Fu Jingce who deliberately said this in order to eradicate the root cause, so as to provoke the anger of the cat demon. The next second, the barrier that enveloped Fu Jingce suddenly burst open, and the annoyed young man held a long sword. The red magic light around his body reflected his blood-red eyes. Zhong Linlang's people were all dumbfounded, half-demon was so powerful, which shows the terrifying aspect of the demon clan. The cat demon obviously didn't expect Fu Jingce to transform halfway, and didn't dare to hang him with any more insect carving tricks. He also used all his tricks. One of the protectors of Song Yifang, fighting against the little demon god of the demon clan, was indeed a wonderful scene. Zhong Linlang felt that she had no sense of presence anymore, so she found a hidden wall to watch the play and press down the poison on her body. After a moment, the cat demon was knocked back to its original form and fell from the sky. He lay on the ground and spat out a few bites of blood, his eyes cracking. "What are you doing for?" the man in black asked Fu Jingce. Fu Jingce was also injured, and blood seeped out of his wound, dyeing his black clothes dark. "For the sake of the demon jade," he said. The man in black exclaimed, "Are you going into the demon hall?" "Yes." Fu Jingce's eyes returned to normal and he looked at him with a faint expression. "Feifei is just an opportunity to bring you to appear. If you are willing to help me, I won't let you die." The man in black stubbornly looked up at him and said, "I am the protector of Song Yifang. Do you think I will agree?" In the face of life and death, Fu Jingce's gaze was firm. "You will. You have also been poisoned by me, are you not afraid that I will take action first?" The man in black had a chip in his body and laughed, very proud. Fu Jingce squatted down, his eyes still calm. "I am a demon, you are a demon, that's the difference." "Crazy." The man in black spat at him fiercely. Fu Jingce nodded earnestly, as if affirming his words. The next second, a hand knife was released, and the man in black fainted. Zhong Linlang was stunned. "Can we still walk?" Fu Jingce came over and asked her again. Can. Zhong Linlang suppressed the pain on her wrist and quickly stood up. Fu Jingce frowned and glanced at the man in black on the ground. "Drag him away." Zhong Linlang nodded solemnly, grabbed the arm of the man in black, and dragged along as she walked. The cat demon also struggled to drag him, and when dragging him to the inn, Zhong Linlang's arm was almost completely useless. After placing the cat demon in Fu Jingce's room and preparing to leave, Fu Jingce suddenly stopped her. Zhong Linlang was stunned for some unknown reason. Fu Jingce silently asked her to sit down, then pulled up her injured wrist with a lamp and looked closely at the wound. The boy's fingers were cold, covering her wrist. The slightly yellow oil lamp delicately outlined Fu Jingce's handsome profile, casting a small shadow on her hand. From another perspective, one can see the soft and dense eyelashes of the young man. His expression was very serious, and Zhong Linlang's heart couldn't help but jump a few times. It's so strange, this is simply so strange. What's the speed of my own heartbeat? Zhong Linlang was complaining about herself in her heart when suddenly she met Fu Jingce's gaze. He took a pill and raised his hand for her to take it. Zhong Linlang looked resistant and said, "What is this?" "I'll protect your life," explained Fu Jingce. "Oh, okay." Fu Jingce lowered his head again and muttered a few words, and a faint red light melted into her wound. The boy's hair was a bit messy, and the strands brushed against the skin on Zhong Linlang's wrist, causing her scalp to tingle. "What's this?" Having seen the power of the red water sword worn by the demon, Zhong Linlang became even more cautious. "Help you detoxify," Fu Jingce explained again. "By the way," the boy stood up, pretending to be puzzled, "why are you blushing?" "Damn it." Zhong Linlang felt guilty and touched her face, it was indeed a bit hot. "Who's blushing?" she retorted loudly, afraid to look up at him, but just stood up randomly to tidy up her clothes. "I'm going back to sleep. I don't know what evil happened tonight." Fu Jingce looked at her panicked figure and found it a bit funny. "But I don't know what came to my mind," and after a moment, the smile gradually faded away. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. 9 Negotiations. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 9 Negotiations. Tearing open the clothes stuck to the wound, the blood had already solidified, and Fu Jingce frowned in pain. He sat down and took out the medicine powder while sprinkling it on the wound. The cat demon's claws are really powerful. If it weren't for him hiding in time, a hole would have been dug in his shoulder long ago. After treating the wound on the body, the sky had already brightened slightly. After washing his face with cold water and dispelling his fatigue, Fu Jingce regained some consciousness and used the cold tea in his teacup to wake up the still unconscious cat demon. The weather was already cold, and there was no charcoal burning in the room. With this cup of cold water, the cat demon couldn't help but curse, but accidentally pulled on the wound on her body, causing her to grin in pain. Fu Jingce found a chair close to him and sat down. "When you wake up, think carefully about what I said last night." The cat demon was tied up, struggled twice, sat up in pain, slowed down for a moment, and said strangely, "I don't have any demon jade, how can I help you?" "You don't have it, but the owner of Song Yifang does," Fu Jingce kindly reminded. The cat demon suddenly became alert and said, "What does that mean?" "On the birthday of the demon emperor, the archbishop and the protector must go. You can bring a few attendants and we can sneak in." Fu Jingce said, "I don't know how to steal the demon jade, just enter the demon palace." The cat demon seemed to have heard something funny and couldn't help but laugh a few times. "Little demon god, you have such a good calculation. Why do you think I will help you?" Fu Jingce gave him a strange glance, seeming to feel that the person was at a loss. "I told you yesterday that I wouldn't let you die, but now it's easy for me to kill you. Besides, as a protector, you're condescending to a little girl, don't you feel aggrieved? The owner of Song Yifang is indeed a seemingly innocent little girl, but in reality, she is ruthless and has a deep understanding of the city. This is also something that the cat demon has never understood. He is not willing to be inferior to others and believes that his demonic power is strong. Being a protector is simply a waste of talent, and becoming the master of the workshop is his dream. So what do you say?" The cat monster frowned, "I'll see how tempting your conditions are." "I will make you the master of the workshop," Fu Jingce said with a determined expression and a particularly serious tone. "Moreover, it is the righteousness that makes you the master, and everyone will be convinced." The cat demon looked suspicious. Is it really fake? Once a word is spoken, it is hard to recall. Fu Jingce's thin lips curved slightly, "You have a chance to try and make mistakes. If what I said is false, you can kill us while we enter the demon palace. When the time comes, it will be filled with people from your demon tribe, and I have no chance of winning." This statement is indeed reasonable. The cat demon hesitated a bit. The condition Fu Jingce offered him was undoubtedly a piece of fat. Becoming the master of the workshop was his dream, but what if it didn't succeed? After thinking for a moment, the cat demon reluctantly reached out and said, "My name is Zhao Nan, and we have a pleasant cooperation." Fu Jingce untied the rope and lightly shook Zhao Nan's hand. "Happy cooperation," he said. Zhao Nan sat paralyzed for a while, then walked trembling to the table and poured himself a cup of tea. He trembled and drank it, moistening his throat. "Now you want to let me go back. If I don't go back for too long, the landlord will become suspicious." Fu Jingce stood up and said, "You can go, but you're missing something." Zhao Nan quickly understood his meaning and said, "Soul gathering cup." Soon, Zhao Nan shook his head and said, "It's best not to deceive the landlord with fake information. I can see it, and she definitely can too." As soon as the words were finished, a crisp female voice could be heard. "No need to pretend, this time it's true." I saw Zhong Linlang push the door and enter, with a smile on her lips, illuminated by the light coming in from behind. Fu Jingce looked at her bright and charming face and unconsciously averted his gaze. "Don't talk nonsense. He wouldn't be so foolish to take the real soul-gathering cup on an adventure." Zhong Linlang ignored him, closed her eyes and recited a few immortal formulas, and a lamp filled with immortal aura appeared. Zhao Nan's eyes straightened as he looked. Zhong Linlang raised her hand and handed the lamp to him. "This is no longer fake. You don't have to worry, just take it. After we enter the demon palace, we will find another opportunity to take it." It seemed she heard it all. Zhao Nan glanced at Fu Jingce, hesitating a bit, but still picked him up and said, "I will come to see you the day after tomorrow at Haishe." Zhong Linlang nodded, and Zhao Nan no longer stopped, hurriedly walking out. After confirming that Zhao Nan had left, Fu Jingce picked up Zhong Linlang's collar with a dark face and questioned, "Are you crazy? Did you really give him a soul-gathering cup? That's really stupid." Zhong Linlang pursed her lips and said to herself, "You didn't stop me just now. I'm not that stupid." She couldn't help but resist. "Don't you know about the Gemini lamp?" "Gemini lamp?" Fu Jingce let go of his hand. Zhong Linlang sighed and began to educate him. The Gemini lamp refers to the soul-gathering lamp and the soul-striking lamp. These two belong to the heavenly palace and the underworld. People in the three realms only squeeze their heads to seek the soul-gathering lamp because the soul-striking lamp is a deadly weapon and only recognizes people in the underworld. Whether it is a demon or a demon, if they misuse this lamp, they will be turned back to the soul-striking lamp. Therefore, it is normal for you not to know the existence of the soul-striking lamp. Zhong Linlang sneered at Fu Jingce in her heart as she spoke. In the middle of the night, he gently fed her medicine, and now when it came to the life and death of Lu Wani, he jumped up again. Fu Jingce coughed uneasily and let go of her collar. "I see. These two lamps have similar shapes and atmospheres, but the landlord couldn't tell either. If the cat demon defected before the battle, we could also punish him." Zhong Linlang touched her chin, feeling very proud. These demons are all the same, only focusing on their own interests. He dare not. Fu Jingce snorted coldly, "He was poisoned by me, only I can save him. There is indeed a trump card." Fu Jingce took a few steps back and forth and pondered, "This move is a dangerous move. I'm sure there will be a fierce battle when we reach the demon palace. If I..." He didn't say the rest. "If I die, you save Lu Wani for me." Zhong Linlang understood his meaning and originally wanted to comfort him a few words, but the words stopped at the edge of her mouth. "I have been too abnormal these past few days. Whatever he does, his death in the demon palace is the best outcome for himself. He should have died in the demon palace." Zhong Linlang's eyes turned cold, covering the darkness in her eyes. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Entering the Palace, 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Entering the Palace. 1. After repairing the inn for 2 days, Zhao Nan arrived at the hour of high. Although it was done by flipping through the window, he came with extra caution and caution. After checking around and seeing no one following him, he felt a little relieved and unloaded the package on his back. As he opened it, he carefully warned, "You quickly change into these clothes and follow behind me. Don't talk." There are several pieces of clothing in the package. A black brocade robe, a melanin satin jacket skirt, and 2 black cloud-patterned cloaks. Zhong Linlang took the clothes and thought to herself that the Songyi Square was really strange. Although it was the Demon Emperor's birthday, she thought she would wear some festive colors, but she didn't expect it to be serious black. "How much do you like black?" She went back to her room to change her clothes, and then followed Zhao Nan out with Fu Jingce. At the hour of high, it was already a quiet night, and not a single person could be seen on the streets. Only a rustling cold wind, carrying fallen leaves, blew over one by one. No one spoke along the way, and Zhao Nan took them to an underground secret room filled with guards. It is said to be a secret room, but in fact it is an underground building. Many lights were lit in the pavilion, shining brightly and looking warm and cozy. A screen was placed in the middle, with large peonies painted on it. Looking through the screen cloth, one can vaguely see the figure behind. A petite figure. Zhao Nan gave a glance and asked Zhong Linlang and Fu Jingce to step aside. "Anan, what did you do?" The petite figure spoke, "Probably the landlord. Come over and help me brush my eyebrows quickly." Zhao Nan's expression darkened for a moment, but he quickly adjusted and greeted with a smile, "The main items of the workshop are ready, and the other 3 protectors are also waiting outside." In such a cold weather, the homeowner in front of me was wearing a red gauze skirt, revealing her bright white legs and a charming face. It didn't look like a demon who killed people like a snake. Zhao Nan took Maid Eye, picked up her face, and carefully traced her eyebrows. "Today is Brother Fuyu's birthday. Do you think I look good like this?" The owner patiently waited for him to finish drawing and turned his face to take a look at the bronze mirror. Fuyu, also known as the Demon Emperor, is said to be a 9-tailed fox. Zhao Nan flattered and said, "It's good to see you," then respectfully lowered his head and said, "Master, it's time for us to leave." The petite girl's face darkened as she grabbed the rouge box at hand and threw it over, accurately hitting Zhao Nan's forehead. She exerted her strength, and blood immediately appeared on Zhao Nan's forehead. The rouge box that rolled to the ground made a few muffled noises, and all the powder inside spilled out, making it particularly eye-catching. "Who allowed you to talk to me like this?" The girl seemed to have changed her personality, with a hint of harshness in her eyes. "You really treat yourself like something, don't you?" "I dare not," Zhao Nan gritted his teeth as she lost her temper inexplicably, "dare not." The landlord sneered, knowing that he was not satisfied in his heart. He slowed down his tone and pursed his cherry lips in dissatisfaction. "Anan, among the 4 guardians, I like you the most because you are very obedient. Now she looks like a little girl next door who is coquettish and sulking with her brother." Zhong Linlang was surprised when she heard it beside her. She didn't expect that the landlord's temper was really unpredictable, and he could turn his face faster than his book. Just as obedient as a pet dog, the little girl leaned in Zhao Nan's ear and said happily. The tone is gentle but full of contempt. Zhao Nan's anger surged up in his heart, but it was not easy to erupt, so he could only secretly clench his fist. He appears to be one of the 4 guardians of Songyi Fang, respected and feared by everyone, but in reality, he is oppressed by the master. She treats him as a servant all day long, and even if she is not satisfied, she humiliates him openly and secretly. Zhao Nan felt that Fu Jingce's proposal was simply fantastic. If he becomes the landlord, he will definitely kill her. Zhao Nan wiped the blood off his face and said, "Thank you for your kindness." The landlord sneered and stood up. Immediately, a maid came over to drape a cloak over her. "Let's go, Anan." She walked lightly, like a lively little swallow. When she approached Fu Jingce, she paused. Zhao Nan's heart tightened, thinking she had discovered something. I have already given these two people a hidden breath potion before, so theoretically there should be no mistakes. You have such a beautiful face. The petite girl approached Fu Jingce's handsome face and couldn't help but touch it. Fu Jingce frowned slightly, thinking about how to wash his face clean when he went back. Anan, he looks unfamiliar, new here. The homeowner shook his head with some regret. He looks so beautiful, and you won't tell me. Zhao Nan smiled on his face and said, as long as the landlord likes it. The landlord looked at Fu Jingce again and said with satisfaction, come and sit with me when you have time. Zhao Nan's smile was almost unstoppable. Everyone knows that this is a difficult person to deal with. The demon world rarely interacts with the demon world, and the workshop owner also rarely interacts with the outside world. He didn't recognize this as the little demon god of the demon family. If it weren't for the overall situation, he estimated that Fu Jingce could have killed her. Zhong Linlang laughed inwardly and was trying to lower her head. Despite this, the landlord still noticed her, but when he looked at her, his smile turned cold and he said, you look good too. This skin can be used to make a fan face. Fu Jingce secretly looked at her with an air of enjoying the show. Zhong Linlang put on an expression of being slaughtered by the emperor. It's really boring. The homeowner pouted with a regretful expression, it's just a joke, it's boring. Zhao Nan quickly welcomed her and said, Master, don't let her get angry with you. The master said, it's okay, let's go, otherwise Brother Fuyu will be in a hurry. When I was just urging her, she cursed, but now she's in a hurry. Zhao Nan secretly rolled his eyes. Going out of the underground pavilion, I saw a group of black-clad men and horses guarding outside. The three people led by me were dressed in the same clothes as Zhao Nan, probably the protectors. When the master sat firmly on the chariot, he set off. Zhong Linlang and Fu Jingce followed at the end, looking around. The road to the secret room was strange, and the current one is even more strange. Walking into a forest, there was fog everywhere, and even the way in was unclear. There was no chance to escape. After walking for a while, the team stopped. I saw the master sitting on the high chariot, reciting a few spells and summoning the demon jade. The demonic jade shimmered with a seductive purple light, with a small hole in the middle. A powerful demonic aura condensed in the master's hand. When the demonic aura filled the small hole, Zhong Linlang felt a whirlwind. On the ground, a huge circular shape appeared rotating, and the passage to the demon palace had already opened. Fu Jingce's eyes lit up and he followed the crowd without hesitation as he walked in. After about a cup of tea was transported, it arrived at the demon palace smoothly. The demon palace is actually a large palace with a long corridor. The main hall was filled with singing and dancing, and the joyful and sharp laughter of the monsters came one after another, accompanied by a suffocating powder smell. As she walked along the corridor, Zhong Linlang saw various monsters. Spider spirits with long and beautiful legs, enchanting and charming snake spirits, tall and powerful tiger spirits, and shark people with fish tails on their faces. There are all kinds of monsters, everything is there. However, when these monsters saw the group of people from Song Yifang, they obediently remained silent and dared to secretly look with their eyes. The abbot led 4 protectors and walked arrogantly to the main hall where the demon emperor was located. We have all come here, but we still haven't felt the spiritual energy of Lu Wani. Zhong Linlang thought to herself that it wouldn't be so coincidental, could it be on the demon emperor? Turning his head to look at Fu Jingce, he found that he also had a rare expression of concern. The door of the main hall was wide open, and a few little demons respectfully walked over to welcome the gift. When they saw the soul-gathering lamp, they looked at each other, smiled apologetically, and went in to announce it in disbelief. In no time, a fox demon walked out, squinting a pair of fox eyes, and solemnly invited the master to enter. Zhong Linlang looked up and took a sneak glance. It was a pity that a large screen was placed in the middle of the main hall, depicting 100 demons. As soon as the wind blew away, the picture seemed to come to life. She squinted her eyes carefully and was instantly shocked. The screen was made of human skin, and upon closer inspection, there were veins within the skin. And with such a large area, I don't know how many sheets are needed. Monsters, like demons, lack humanity. My little Ami, come over quickly. Someone inside spoke in a very pleasant male voice, which was very seductive. I think this should be the demon emperor floating jade. The homeowner walked over happily upon hearing the words, bypassing the screen and hearing her crisp smile like a silver bell. Brother Fuyu, have you missed Ah Mei? A cheerful smile from the man came. However, after a while, it quieted down inside and listened carefully. What was heard was the sound of clothes falling to the ground, as well as the low and imperceptible gasps. It's really messy. Zhong Linlang frowned, not expecting these two demons to really avoid suspicion. The little demon waiting inside walked over and closed the door, and they were successfully blocked outside. Zhaonan turned around and saw the calm and composed Fu Jingce and the frowning and contemplative Zhong Linlang. I don't know what these two people are planning now. He closed his eyes, hoping that the promise would come true. Actually, Fu Jingce is also trying to figure out how to approach the Demon Emperor. End of this chapter.